This is an extraordinary moment. As a 9-year-old girl, I never thought that I would be standing up here one day, getting to give back to this incredible movement of ours. This is not just a huge honor, but it is a reminder of my commitment to every single one of you, that I will lead this organization with so much pride, with the values at the core, and I will make all of you very, very proud and hopefully extremely confident in the decision that you've taken today.
Yeah, former Zimbabwean swimmer and two-time Olympic gold medalist Kirsty Coventry, who was elected as the next president of the International Olympic Committee in a secret ballot of 7 candidates at the organization's 144th session in Greece earlier on Thursday. The 41-year-old secured an exact majority, 49 of the 97 votes, defeating male candidates, making that 6 male candidates to become the first woman, the first African, and the youngest to be elected to the post. Now, Antonio Samaranch Jr. of Spain was runner-up with 28 votes, while Lord Sebastian Coe, the World Athletics president, among the favourites, only managed to secure 8. Coventry, who is currently sports minister in her homeland, will begin her 8-year term in 3 months, replacing the outgoing German Thomas Bach, who will remain IOC head until June 23. SportsMax.tv editor and track and field analyst Leighton Levy joins us to discuss the significance of Coventry's appointment and the potential impact her leadership will have on the Olympic movement. Leighton, it's a pleasure to have you. As always, it's been a while, I feel, that you've not graced us with your presence. But what a moment for you to join us. Kirsty Coventry, elected IOC president, and for some, a surprise given the type of media attention I think that surrounded Lord Sebastian Coe heading into the election. But also the bigger surprise for me, the manner in which she won. The fact that it didn't even go to a second round of voting and that she had the majority needed in round 1. Did it come as a surprise to you, the manner in which she delivered?
I think so. For me, yes, definitely. Because, you know, when you have a male-dominated environment like the IOC, like World Athletics, you tend to see the vote trend towards the male contestant, the contenders for leadership. So this was a change and a refreshing one, I might add, because look, we've seen the same playbook run out forever. I mean, all my life, from Samaranch come right through to Bach now, where it's always been male dominated and the same things apply, and the sport has not grown. The Olympic movement has struggled. And in many ways, it was a time for a refreshing change. So, you know, she's 41 years old. She's not that far removed from the 2004 Olympic Games, where I think she won her last medals. She's the most decorated swimmer in African history. So she's closer connected to what athletes are going through now, because the dynamic has changed over the years, where sport in itself is not as amateur as it used to be, purely amateur as it was, say, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. More and more sports are transitioning now into a more professional setup. So maybe this is a time for someone else, someone with fresh ideas, to come in and, of course, run the agents, run the IOC in a way in which will reflect those changes over the last 5 decades. Because what we've seen from Bach and, you know, all the others who have gone on before her has not really reflected the evolution of sport globally. And I think now is the time, and maybe it takes a woman to lead the organization in the way in which it needed to be led.
It's interesting that you reason it in that way, Leighton, because, you know, reading a lot of the articles on this situation, there is a feeling that Coventry is really, given the fact that she was backed by Thomas Bach, is really going to be continuing a lot of what he had started, a lot of what he had done. But based on what you're saying, it doesn't seem as if you necessarily agree with that point?
Well, maybe look, continuity is always important, right? But when you look at what the opportunity that she has to bring meaningful change to how the amateur sports globally are governed, it's an opportunity for her to do the things that she perhaps wanted to do, but was unable to do, because then the narrative and the status quo dictated that she's towed the line. Now that she's in charge, now that she has the opportunity to lead, maybe she can bring her own ideas, fresh ideas, into how the association, of course, the federation is run. Because look, we know that there are a lot of things that I personally found offensive with the IOC. For example, for those to bring an anecdote into this to give people a clear understanding. In 2012, Johan Blake was fined for wearing a Richard Beale watch at the Olympic Games in the 100-meter final, if you remember. Because they say it was in direct conflict to Seiko, who is an Olympic sponsor. Now, why would the IOC not want the athlete to benefit from their own sponsorship? Because it doesn't impact anything, the fact that an athlete wears their own sponsor in an Olympic setting, because that is what they do for a living. So the IOC's ideas about how they can restrict athletes their earning potential, because even just last Olympic Games, when Sebastian Coe announced that the winners in athletics at the Olympic Games will earn $50,000, there was some pushback from the IOC. The dynamic of things have changed. People are not doing these things anymore just for the love of it. They're doing it to earn a living. And so, maybe this is an opportunity for her, who has been an athlete not that long ago, to understand the shift in why athletes perform in the way in which they do these days. So it's an opportunity, I see.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clearly in that it is an opportunity. Whether that opportunity is taken is another matter. But I also want to ask you, because you mentioned the Lord Sebastian Coe issue and the fact that he introduced prize money at the Olympic Games for track and field only last year. Do you think that ultimately worked against him in this election?
Perhaps. Now that you raise it.
I think we've lost Leighton for a second there. I really wanted to hear his response to that one, Lance and Mariah, because it came up in a WhatsApp group that I'm in earlier today, and I wondered about it, because you are looking at a rather conservative organization, the International Olympic Committee, and what you had Sebastian Coe doing last year was going against the status quo. And I wonder, and I think we have Leighton back with us. Leighton, you were answering the question of whether the decision to introduce prize money worked against Sebastian Coe in this case.
It could have, because I think, when you look at what has been, these are gentlemen.
I think Leighton is just not supposed to answer this question for whatever reason. Lance and Mariah, he's gone stuck again.
Yeah, maybe I should try with him. Maybe I should try. Leighton, are you still with us?
May have worked against it.
Yeah, Leighton, we didn't get anything you said, so I think you'll have to answer that question again.
All right, so, okay, one more time. So, because the IOC is largely a conservative body, I think Lord Coe's decision to move against the grain last year at the last Olympic Games in Paris last year may have worked against him, because these are people who still think that athletes need to run for the pure love of the sport and not worry about the financials, not worry about how they pay their bills, not worry about how they live their lives after they finish their careers. So I think it could be something that worked against Lord Coe, but I think it's actually something that should pave the way for other sports to follow in the near future. And maybe that's something that the new president can embrace.
Yeah, and speaking about some of the things the new president can embrace, Leighton, earlier today in one of the press conferences that she was a part of, she was asked about the LA Olympics, right? And one of the reporters was making the point that, President Donald Trump has a lot of restrictions when it when it involves coming into the country and all of that. And they were asking her, you know, how does she plan to ensure that every athlete that qualifies for the Olympics has the opportunity to come into the country. And it's a serious issue. And her response had to do with, you know, Donald Trump is a lover of sport, and of course she'd have to ensure that they communicate. Do you think that would be a challenge that she'd have to face?
It will be her major challenge. I think when you look at the countries that are potentially going to be banned from entering the United States, you're looking at a situation where there are a lot of African countries with medal contenders who might not be able to get into the United States for the Olympic Games. Now, the Olympic Games are supposed to be an inclusive event, but based on the current policies that we see emerging from the United States under this current administration, there's a strong possibility that there are many athletes who will not be able to gain entry to the United States. In addition to that, there's also the issue of visas, where there's wait times now for 700 days. So there are athletes who might be applying, or their federations are applying for visas to participate in the Olympic Games, who will probably have to wait until 2032 to get those visas granted. So it's a multifaceted, multi-layered challenge that he faces in terms of dealing with the Trump administration, for them to temporarily be more inclusive to get athletes coming into the United States for the Olympic Games, or it's going to dampen the games because there are many medal contenders from countries that Muslim countries especially, who might not be able to get entry into the United States, and also to be able to move freely about the United States, or to get visas to come into the United States. It's a significant challenge that is going to be, I think, the principal thing on our list of things to do in the next 2 to 3 years, because clearly something has to change for athletes to feel assured that when they qualify for the Olympic Games, that then will be able to participate.
Yeah, the narrative coming from the IOC prior to Coventry's election today, though, Leighton, I've been hearing this in the past month or two, that they are reasonably confident that Trump's administration will cooperate with the Olympic movement, and they felt very confident. Well, this is a narrative coming out of the IOC that LA 28 will be good and Trump will be cooperative.
Well, they have more confidence than I do. They clearly know something I don't, but I can only speak from what I'm looking at right now. There are people who are being turned back at the airports, for example, for having personal messages read from their phones that are disparaging to the current president, and they are turned back. Scientists, I'm not talking about regular individuals, scientists and people of high repute. So what is it then? How is it different for them for an athlete coming in from a Muslim country who they might think is are perceived to be a threat to the United States security, and turn them back? Look, they might know things based on what they know and conversations that they may have had with people within the administration. But from where I sit, I don't see that happening just now. I hope I'm wrong. But, it's a wait and see to see how that plays out. Because, if people are already being turned back and people are being deported for what reasons that don't seem logical to us right now, what is there to suggest that things will change for LA 2028? I'm not convinced about it right now.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens in the coming years as we lead up to LA 28, Leighton. But before you wrap your presentation, I want to ask you about, comments that Kirsty Coventry had made maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago, when it was put to her that she had Thomas Bach's support. And she felt, she said publicly that he wasn't campaigning for her, and she didn't feel as if he was going out of his way to support her, and he had a good relationship with many of the other candidates as he had with her. But given what happened today, do you think that Bach's support of Coventry played a part in her being emphatically embraced by the IOC movement?
I think it may have. Bach, I think, served well. I think he didn't ruffle any feathers particularly. So if he put his stamp of approval on her, I think it may have helped. Part of the IOC rules is that no candidate or no one can campaign for another candidate prior to the elections. But when Mark said the things that he said, I think he probably was just being sincere in believing that she probably has the tools to do what needs to be done for the immediate future, certainly for the next 8 years from the IOC. So it may have helped. Certainly, I don't think it hurt anybody, but I think it definitely would have helped.
Yeah, all right, let's leave it there. We'll chat again soon, no doubt. Take care and have a good rest of the day, man. All right, leave it there. Let's go to a break on the SportsMax Zone Interactive to wrap up the show after this.